Hi everyone, welcome to another Table Talk. So if you watched my last flight video, I celebrated the 500 flight milestone on this bad boy, my NAMC Mig-35B. And if you've been following my channel for a while, you're probably getting bored of seeing it because it's been in a lot of videos, but probably because I've had it around for so long. And it is my overall favorite park jet of all time. So I'm not here to brag about the fact that I've got 500 flights. I did want to share some things that what I built it with, and quickly, and then talk about some areas where I did notice some extra wear and tear, and perhaps some things I might do differently in the future, especially since I started flying at the new field in Campbell River that has the runway is very smooth, but it is a little bit harder surface underneath. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. Since I started keeping flight logs on my airplanes, this is only the second airplane I've had this many flights on. I did reach 500 flights with my modified RC Powers SU-30 version 4, which is still cranking along, but these two planes are made of totally different materials, or considerably different materials, I should say. Alright, so this plane is built. It's one of the last planes that I built primarily with Depron. It was sort of right around the same time as the Depron supply started to dry up in North America, and then RC Foam, where I used to buy my Depron from, they unfortunately went out of business. So now I do have a few sheets of Depron left, and I'm just hoarding those to be used for specific parts. So on this plane, the wing plate, back plate, elevons, vertical stabilizers, nacelles are all made out of Depron. I use model plane foam grade B for the fuselage because I didn't really need the extra strength of Depron for that. My KF4 airfoils are made out of paperless Dollar Tree foam or Adams Ready Board. So it hasn't been obviously all marshmallows and puppy dogs. I did have one gonk, in fact. I was getting a little bit cute and tried to come in and sort of just kind of do like an elevator landing, and I did get too slow. Wind caught me, and I sort of just popped the last inch and a half off the nose, so I was actually able to fix it up with some 5-minute epoxy at the field and keep flying. But then and then I brought it home and filled it in a little bit, sanded it, and fixed it up. So anyway, that's my own buffoonery. Where I have noticed, which would be understandable with any park jet, is the wear and tear on the nacelles. Now I have noticed in these seams here, where the fuselage joins along the inner part of these nacelles, after about 300 flights, I did notice a couple of cracks in both of these. So both of these have been reinforced with some more glue. So let me talk briefly about the glues that I've used. I used primarily this Craft Medley Premium Craft Glue, which is identical to this Bob Smith Industries Foam Cure. Now I bought this quite a while ago. This is from Hobby King, but it's made by Bob Smith Industries. It says it's made in the USA. So most reputable hobby shops, or maybe even on Amazon, if you can't find this, luckily I'm able to find this premium craft glue at my local Dollar Tree store. If you can't find it, or you don't live in a place that has Dollar Tree stores, maybe just do a Google search for Bob Smith Industries Foam Cure, and you might be able to get it. It dries hard like epoxy. It's sandable. It doesn't dry within 5 minutes like 5-minute epoxy does, but it's sandable. Dries very strong like epoxy, but is also very lightweight. I used 5-minute epoxy to glue in my spars, my wing spars, my control horns, and my motor mount. And then I also reinforced, you can kind of see a little bit here, maybe, well, if I get my fat finger out of the way, it looks like my plane's been blobbed a little bit there around the motor mount. I use this expanding Gorilla Glue. It expands, I think, up to about 10 times what you put on, so you want to put it on very sparingly. but as it foams and expands, it tends to fill in all the cures, and it dries really, really hard. Like when I have to recycle one of these airplanes, I just would have to take a hammer to break that. So putting that around the motor mount has really strengthened that. So yeah, so what I have noticed, the field at Campbell River, like I said, the runway surface is a bit harder. The guys have done an outstanding job, but every once in a while you'll get little spots where, you know, because of the weather, like maybe a little rock is heaved up out of the ground, so it does kind of bump along a little bit. And you know, it does, even though I put a thin layer of that Craft Medley glue on the bottom of them, at the Campbell River field, I think it was actually making it worse, because then it made it slide even further. So what I've done, and I've noticed that I've had some cracks on the inside of the nacelles, some cracks developing. So what I did was experimented, and I just put some clear transparent duct tape here that I also use for my hinges. It has super strong adhesive and lots of little fibers in it to you know, to keep it strong. So I put some of that on there, and hopefully to prevent it from cracking. And also even with that glue on there, you know, sometimes you hit a little pebble, and this happens even at the Merville field where there's grass. You hit a little pebble or something, and it'll create a little groove in the foam, which I'm sure then probably contributes to maybe weakness and cracking. So I put this transparent duct tape on there, and what it does is it actually helps to slow down the sliding. It's cut the sliding distance probably in half, which is important at that field, because you don't want to slide off. I don't want to slide off the side of the runway into the sand and the gravel, especially when I'm using these little quad racing motors, because they're mostly all naked bottom, and if you get any sand up in the motor, it can cause you some real issues. So what I will do in future builds, and I'll demonstrate this when I do my intermediate park jet build, where I'm going to build another Mig-35B, but primarily out of model plane foam. I'm going to use on the inside, the inside bottom of the intake here. I'm going to use some of this fiberglass mesh drywall tape. You know, it's got a little bit of adhesive on the one side. And what I'll do is I'll lay that down on the foam, and then I'll take some of this glue, and I'll put a few beads of glue all around, and then I'll take some scrap foam, and I'll just squeegee that until it's super, super thin, and then let it dry hard. And hopefully that'll create like a poor man's fiberglass, if you want. Excuse me. So hopefully what that'll do is that, it'll delay those cracks coming on, or maybe prevent them entirely. And also what I'm hoping is that, when I do have a little bit of a bump, is that maybe because of all these fibers, that force will be dissipated throughout the mesh, rather than, being centered in one spot and causing cracks. Anyway, that's my theory. We'll see how it works out. And this stuff doesn't really add any weight at all, especially if you squeegee the glue really, really well. Components wise, I've had many different motors and speed controllers in this plane, so I can't really attest to how long those would have lasted. The servos, they're all original servos, using my favorite servos, RC Timer 9-gram nylon gear servo for my elevons, and 5-gram RC Timer nylon gear servos for my ailerons and my rudders. This is what they look like. These are my favorite servos of all time. I think now the 9-gram servo is labeled the same and looks the same, but comes in a blue box rather than a black box. So anyway, but yeah, touch wood. Haven't had any jitter, any chattering out of those, and Lord knows how many thousands of cycles that those servos would have gone through over 500 flights. The other thing I did here, because this is a spot that sticks up, putting the plane in and out of the car, and there are times where I might have to flip the airplane on its back to adjust a servo or adjust a linkage control rod, whatever. So what I did when I built this plane, similar to I think, well, pretty much all the planes I build now, is about the top half inch of the top of the, well, this is actually part of the rudder, and then over on the edges here is, again, I put some of this glue and just squeegeed it really thin with some foam before I painted the plane. And you know, these are holding up really, really well. I mean, they're pretty much pristine from, you know, however many hundreds of times getting the plane in and out of the car. Oh, sorry, hoping to go fly tomorrow, so I got some batteries charging. So that's worked out really well to protect that critical area of the foam, so that these don't get rounded off. I mean, I suppose that's just more for you know, for form. But these, it still looks nice and crisp there. So yeah, so anyway, there we go, folks. Like I said, the RC gods have been with me. You know, there have been more than one occasion where I've you know, allowed myself to run out of airspace altitude and ideas, and luckily the RC gods were with me, and you know, the plane survived to fly another day, or I was able to get myself out of trouble. I mean, there's no doubt been a certain amount of luck involved to get this plane to where it is, but you know, I'm hoping it's still flying amazing. I've only gained, with all the repairs, I've only gained probably 10 to 12 grams of weight, so I'm still at about, I just weighed it before I shot this video, about 560 grams, 19.7 ounces with a 2200 3S battery. So I'm pretty pleased with that. You know, and I don't notice that weight causing any issues with wing loading or anything like that. So yeah, so I just wanted to pass those things along. If you've built the MiG-35B or thinking of it, or you know, any plane with, you know, sort of these split nacelles like this MiG has, you know, if areas maybe to watch for weakness, or that you might want to reinforce a little bit during your build, so that, you know, that it will last longer. So thanks as always for watching, and thanks so kindly for your support to my channel. It's much appreciated. Keeps me motivated to keep doing these things and sharing my journey with you. So blue skies, calm winds to everyone. Park jet noise, the other sound of freedom, baby. Take care.